Alright, so today's video is going to be a review of two GBC modules. Both of these are by the builder Pinwheel GBC. This channel will be linked in the description below, along with Rebrickable links to instructions to build these modules. So first on the left here, we have the Reveal ball pump, which is a ball pump. So the balls stack here and are pushed up one at a time and go out here. And he's using all the transparent pieces here so you can kind of see the function itself. A lot of times with ball pumps, everything's hidden inside, deep inside the module. So the idea was to illustrate how it works. And then on the right here, we have Emmett's Crane 2. I'm not sure if there's a version 1, but this is a bit of a themed module. You know, you've got Emmet, he's driving the crane here. And I love the color here. It looks really great. You know, you've got the yellows here on the crane, so that kind of stands out a little bit, and then the red. And I like the color scheme of the Reveal ball pump too. I didn't have quite enough tiles to get this just right, so I'm kind of missing a one by one there, I guess. But I'm actually going to be rebuilding this module. We'll talk about that in a bit. But we're going to take a look at these one at a time, and I'll kind of go through any modifications I've made, any trouble that I had during the building process, those kind of things, and then show them in action. All right, so in order to power these, I'm going to be using a 9-volt train regulator. This is a quick little adapter I made. You can just use the official Lego one. It'll power motors just fine. So let's get it hooked up here. Let's go ahead and turn the switch on and get this centered. We'll go ahead and run at full speed. So you've got a nice stepper module through here. You can see it runs very smoothly. And fairly substantial gear train through here. There's a chain link here, and that runs all the gears to lift the crane up and down. So let's see it in action. We'll put a ball box there and dump some balls in. So it's a fairly simple module, but what I loved about it was how easy it was to build and how reliable it is. I don't think I've dropped a single ball from it. I have made no modifications to this module and had zero trouble with it running. And that's a stark contrast to a lot of the other modules that I've built that I've had a lot of trouble with. So if this is a first module that you want to build, this is a great one. A lot of the parts are very common. In order to get it exactly like this, you may have to order some stuff on Bricklink. But a lot of this can be substituted. You could just go Rainbow Warrior with it. And whatever pieces you have in your collection, no matter what color they are, you can build this up. So let's kind of look at the back here just to see all the pieces here. So you've got Emmet inside here in his little control center here. So he's very stressed. You can see the look on his face. It's a tough job. It takes its toll, but he's handling it. He's hanging in there. So it is powered by a single medium size power functions motor. And again, it's pretty basic in the makeup of everything. So you really shouldn't have too much of a problem, depending on your collection, you know, to get all the pieces necessary to build this. So this definitely gets 2 thumbs up. I really like it. I like the little bit of theming that's added in there. And if you haven't seen already, Pinwheel has some really great themed modules. I really like to see those, and it's something I'd like to do when I start building my own. So that is Emmett's Crane 2. Let's get on to the Reveal ball pump. Okay, so this module I have quite the history with. I had a lot of problems, so I'm going to try to go through and explain what they were and how things happened. So I'll just kind of go chronologically. First, I didn't have this piece when I first built it. I'm not even sure what set this would come in. So I tried to kind of brick build something similar. So I built that. So This way, it kind of lines up. But this way, it's not as long. And this helps with the balls not overshooting the lifting mechanism. So once this came in, that did solve a few issues for me that made it work a little more reliably. But most of my issues came in this stepper module here, because it rides on these 12 length axles. And I had a lot of trouble trying to find axles that were straight and axles that it slid up and down pretty well. And I'll show you how you can troubleshoot that with this particular module. You can just disconnect this universal joint here, and then you can spin this by hand. And it's working okay now. It's hard to explain through a video, but it's a bit tough to turn, and you can feel where it binds a little bit more in some areas than others. So it's kind of an uneven load, I guess you could say. But it's working okay now. But I think before, when there was more binding and more issues, when I had the original 12 length axles on there, I think that's how I did damage elsewhere in the module. And what's funny is I could take the universal joint out completely and the module would run fine. And I'd put this back in and it would all go completely wrong. And it wasn't this being the problem. So that's why it threw me through a loop. I've said this many times before. I'm more of a electrical kind of person than I am mechanical. So that's kind of where I differ from a lot of GBC enthusiasts. I will spend all day programming something or wiring something. That's fun to me. Troubleshooting mechanical things takes me a little more time sometimes. Sometimes I had to walk away from it for a while and come back to it more than once over the course of a few days. And I finally got to the bottom of it. And it's this 8-tooth gear right down here. And I have some footage of repairing that and taking it out. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be to get it disassembled down to that point and replace that gear. Really, the hardest part of all was finding out that that gear was the problem. Because again, I could remove the universal joints and the module would run fine when that gear wasn't having to sustain a load. So you can see here, it's hard to see this tooth, maybe a couple others. They're just slightly bent and it's so hard to even see it, but it was plenty enough to jam up the entire module. And this is the latest version of the 8-tooth gear. I wanted to choose one that was going to be pretty robust. I guess it wasn't quite robust enough. Really, a criticism I'll say here is you've got a train of 4 8-tooth gears, and there's quite a bit of load on them. Like I said, this module, no matter how straight your axles are, there's going to be some resistance to this. I know some people will lubricate GBC modules. This may be a case, maybe I would, because it's not anywhere near the GBC balls themselves where they're going to pick up that lubricant and take them elsewhere throughout the loop. I know Matt from the Great Pulpit, he's very much against lubrication and doesn't want that lubricant traveling through all the modules to others. And I can certainly respect that. And so far, I haven't done any lubrication on the modules. I'm going to do my absolute best to get them working reliably without lubrication. So the lesson there is, even if you think you've proven to yourself where the problem is, you might not know still. I do a lot of troubleshooting with electrical, computer, stuff like that. So I've definitely learned that lesson there, but now I'm doing it mechanically. The fact that I could remove this and it would run fine, even though the problem was further back. Because when this gear doesn't have a load on it, it might still work just fine. So that was the absolute main issue. That was a huge thing for me. And again, it took me a few days to figure it out. But I'm glad I got to the bottom of it, because definitely learned a lesson, and now I get to share it with you guys and maybe save you some trouble down the road. The other modification I've made here is added this stop mechanism here. So this actually goes back and forth. That's for the timing valve here. And the problem was it would over rotate just enough that it would bind, because this can't turn anymore, and that would jam up the entire module as well. That also could have been what bent the gear down here. I'm not sure if that was just from this mechanism having too much resistance or that, but I'm pretty sure that happened early on, because even when it was running okay, it kind of had a cycle to it where it would, you know, turn, struggle, turn, struggle, turn, struggle, like just kind of on and off like that. So maybe that is a telltale sign that you've got a couple bad teeth. So let's get this turned around. This timing mechanism actually really isn't needed. I'm eventually going to try Dune's version of this. And if you don't know Dunes, he runs the YouTube channel Brick Engineering, and he's done several modifications of existing GBC modules and just does some improvements, maybe make them a little more efficient and a little more standardized on the construction. And I'm interested to see how he's changed the gearing and, you know, the gear train, especially through here. Because I did notice whenever there was a problem, when there was some binding or resistance, this whole thing here can move quite a bit. There's some other parts that have a good amount of play to them, and you find those things out when things are going wrong, when when you've got a jam or there's some binding or things like that. So with all of it being said, let's see how this thing's going to run. It's running pretty good, so I'm very glad that I've actually solved the issues I had with it. And the entire idea of this module is to have a ball pump that, instead of being buried in the center of a module, he's using these transparent pieces so you can see how it works. So you've got this ratcheting mechanism here where the balls can go up but are not allowed to drop back down. And we can see if we stop balls from coming through, it's just going to keep going up and they're not going to fall back through. It hung up a little bit somewhere. I didn't even see where that happened. But it's running pretty well. I'm glad I finally got that issue figured out. And again, a very good learning experience. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the module. I like the module and I like the way everything is presented and works. Again, I'm very glad to have a good learning experience like this. I'm sure these lessons will come back into play as I build more and more GBC modules, and especially once I start building my own, because I don't have quite as much experience as many of the other GBC builders out there. And I will say, you know, whenever I do have issues like these, one, I always assume it's my problem, that I made a mistake, that I'm overlooking something, and generally that does seem to be the case. Two, I don't generally reach out to the builders. I don't expect them to give free tech support for these modules. They've built their own modules, they've made the instructions, they've released them freely online. I'm not gonna bug them. You know, what are they gonna respond? Oh yeah, you've got a broken 8-tooth gear right down here. Like, no, you know. So I try to solve as many things as I can. If I have a very specific question, I will ask, but for the most part, I'm just very appreciative that they do that. And I think that's why this is such a great hobby. The best parts of any hobby is going to be the people. And I've loved getting in touch with many of the GBC builders, even though I've never met any in person. I probably never will. I've kind of explained that a little bit here and there. But I'm very glad to be getting some hands-on experience with LEGO GBC. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you had a good laugh at my journey that I've had with this. There was well over an hour of cut footage of me just sitting here thinking I was like one step away from figuring it out, and you know, just having all those issues until I found it here. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.